Hey warriors, we're back for our second lesson on memory. This is going to explore the processes and the stages of memory. Now, the processes that it takes to put memory into your big, beautiful brain is really not all that hard to remember. See what I did there? So processes of memory looks a lot like a computer. We can make the analogy of our human brain being similar to a computer because a computer analyzes information and then stores it, and so does our brain. Like we said in the first lesson, we're storing information and we don't even know it. So the first step or the first process is to encode information. And encoding information is what it sounds like. We then have to store that information so that we are able to retrieve it. So encoding, storage, and information are integral parts of maintaining memories. All right, it looks a little bit like this. When you encode information, similar to typing on a computer, we are translating information into a form that can be stored in memory, just like on your computer. You got to put the letters, the keys to the whatever. You have to put it into the computer. You have to encode it. There are three types of encoding systems, and those include visual codes. I can see it. Acoustic codes, I can hear it, and semantic codes, that brings it meaning. Now, I'll give you some tips and show you the differences between visual, acoustic, and semantic codes in class. I'm going to save that for class because it's a big surprise. Now, the best thing about semantic, acoustic, and visual memory is that semantic works the best. The best thing about it is semantic works the best. This is why teachers will tell you to put things into your own words or to connect it to things that you already know, because that's the best way we're going to be able to retrieve information. Is the more memory cues or things that we attach it to in our brains is going to give us more to retrieve it from. Semantic means we can tell the story, we can tell a background, we got context behind it. Acoustic, maybe the word rhymes with this or that, or think of song lyrics. You're really good at song lyrics and remembering those. We set it to music, we're good at remembering it. It's the primary way I can remember the preamble of the Constitution. And visual codes. If we just see something, we only have the visual things to retrieve information from. Again, more on that in class and an explanation for what an encoding process looks like. When we store information, we are maintaining the encoded information and trying to keep it there. It's just in our working memory or our short-term memory. More on those soon. We use strategies for information recall, such as maintenance rehearsal, where we just repeat the information, and elaborative rehearsal, which is relating new information to old information. So like I said, elaborative rehearsal is when your teachers say, put it in your own words, connect it to something you already know, connect it to prior knowledge, where I frequently do this with you because I tell you to think of how this works in your own life. Classical conditioning, where can you tie that to your own life? Operant conditioning, name a place where you learn by rewards and punishments. I'm always doing this to you because elaborative rehearsal gives you more information to retrieve that information. When we store it, we repeat it. Maintenance rehearsal. That's why you guys like the Kahoots. It's why you like the Blickets, because you repeat the same information over and over, and it works. You're making a new neural network when you repeat that information. When we store the information, guys, your brain does this without even being told. It sorts it into these file systems. Some things that we file away automatically include time, frequency, time and frequency, the only two that come to my mind right now, but I know there's a third one that I'll probably tell you in class. When we retrieve information, you can see that it's not foolproof, but retrieving is the process of recalling information from memory storage. When we do it, we use recall or recognition, or at least that's how we do it on a test. When you see it on a test, it looks like this. What's the capital of North Dakota? You got no cues. You got no context. You got nothing. You got to call it all, retrieve info from memory without help. So North Dakota's capital is not something that you practice often because we live nowhere near North Dakota. Somebody that lives near North Dakota is going to know that more readily than you or me. Recognition is when we have a multiple choice bank. So what's the capital of Minnesota? A little bit less challenging because we have a list of choices. And so that gives us recognize from a list of alternatives. You like the recognition better than you like the recall. Am I right? Because you have something a backdrop. When we retrieve memories, here is a key to forming some of those memories, and why context matters is because context-dependent memory makes information more easily retrieved when it's in the context in which it's stored. So you have these two women who are in a pool. The next time they're in a pool, they'll hearken back to this time that they're in the pool. When you are in the same general area where you made the memory, that's when the memory is going to come back to you. I haven't visited my hometown in many years. The last time I was there was in 2017. If I were to visit there today, then some memories would come back that I haven't thought about in a very long time. The same would be true for you. If you go to visit your intermediate school, you would have these memories that come back to you. Oh yeah, I remember the time, da 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 da. So context matters. If we don't go see those places, maybe we'll never think of that stuff again. I don't know. Maybe not. And then you have state dependent. Now that's different from context dependent in that state dependent is talking about your physical state, your mood, your happiness levels. It's the memory that is more easily retrieved when we're in the same physiological state or emotional state where the memory was made. Now, this is tricky if we are under the influence of drugs. Now, I've heard it said with context and state-dependent memory that if a person is studying and they're drunk and they're learning new material when they're drunk, then they need to be drunk to recall it. I don't know anybody that wants to study when they're drunk. When we're drunk, we don't study. I don't study when I'm drunk at all because I don't get drunk. But here you have a very happy lady making very happy memories. So the next time that she wants to recall these very happy memories, they'll come back to her more easily if she's in the same physiological state. All right, here we'll transition to stages of memory. So we go from processes to stages. Sensory memory is exactly what it sounds like. It is the first stage. It is immediate. It is initial recording of sensory information. This is what sensory adaptation is all about. So you right now are experiencing sensation that your body's not paying any attention to. For instance, the nose in front of your face. Your nose is always in your field of vision, but you don't acknowledge it because your sensory memory doesn't make you pay attention to it. You just zone it out. Right now, you don't feel the socks on your feet. You don't feel your clothing because your body has adapted to it. Your sensory memory tunes it out, so you don't need it. It is how we decide whether or not we're going to pay attention to something, and your big, beautiful brain's a part of that. Your reticular activating system tells you what to pay attention to. These sensory memories give us a memory trace. A memory trace is that impression on our senses that tells us whether or not we need to pay attention to it. Sensory memory looks like this. There's iconic memories. Iconic memories are visual. Icon, think I'm looking at the Mona Lisa. It's an icon. It's part of our sensory memory that holds visual information, and it goes really fast. I can show you this. You see this, but faster. Okay. And then you have your echoic, echo. It's your acoustic memory, momentary sensory memory of auditory stimuli, and it is just as fast as well. Sensory memory builds to get our short-term memory. Now, your short-term memory is that which is held for a very brief amount of time, about 18 seconds if we are not maintaining rehearsal, if we're not rehearsing that information. Short-term memory has to be something that we work at, and we'll work at it in class. One of the key figures that you'll learn about in memory is this guy, Hermann Ebbinghaus. Remember him. Ebbinghaus found that there is a primacy effect and a recency effect. Now, primacy is when we remember things in a list that are in the very beginning, right? If you have a list of 20 terms, you're going to remember the first 5 really easily. You're going to remember the last 5 a little bit more easily. Recency. Primacy is first. Recency are the ones at the bottom of the list. We remember the ones at the top because we review those. If it's a list of 20, we review the ones at the top more frequently. And then the recency are the ones that are fresh in our memory. This is how we know what we know about short-term memory, but there's more, so just wait. What makes short-term memory a little bit more durable is using things like chunking. Now, I know that your teachers use chunking with you because we organize items into familiar or manageable units, much like lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. We don't overwhelm you with loads of information because we know that being experts in learning and teaching, that organizing the small manageable units is less overwhelming to your long-term, short-term memory. One thing that interferes, one thing that prevents us from putting things from short-term into long-term memory is interference. And interference is the process that occurs when new information appears in short-term memory and replaces what was already there. It comes in various packages. And that brings us to long-term memory. Now, the cool thing about long-term memory is that it is unlimited. It can store whatever you can put into it. It's the type or stage of memory capable of large and relatively permanent storage, and the sky's the limit, unlike a computer. Now I'll tell you more all about this in class. Of course, I got loads of things to show you that relate to memory, and we'll get to how to improve your memory based on types of memory, processes, and stages of memory, and how to prevent interference when you're trying to encode information, and how to more easily retrieve information. It's life-changing. Your big, beautiful brain is very powerful, and I'm going to show you how to tap into its unlimited long-term storage.